the game controller is going to be the one that is going to tell where the bouncing enemy is going to be horizontally. Okay, so we need to adjust a few things. First of all, we need to make some sort of way of telling the bouncing enemy where it's going to be. Okay, so we could make a variable here that is going to be a private bool start from left. Okay, and this is something that can be defined through a property. So we can define that as start from left. And another way to do this is making this logic here kind of move to the game controller. So what we're going to do here in the game controller is, after we set the parent, we're going to type bouncing enemy object dot transform dot position is going to be a new vector 3, and we need to set x, y, and z. Okay, so as you see, x is using a random value, but we want to make this a bit differently. We want to check if the number that we are in this loop here is an even number. Okay, so if it's 0, we want the bouncing enemy to start in the left. If it's 1, it starts in the right. Okay, so an easy way to check this is by typing I modulus 2. So this is going to return the remainder of a division. So 0 divided by 2 is going to return the remainder 0. Okay, and that usually, and actually that's in every case, means that the number is even. So we check if I modulus 2 equals to 0. And then we put the question mark here. Remember, we are just asking a question. We're going to use again a ternary operator. If the rest of this division equals to 0, then we're going to use what we had here in the bouncing enemy. We're going to use minus horizontal range or horizontal range. Let's start with horizontal range. Okay. Else, we're going to use minus horizontal range. Y is going to be the same. Bouncing enemy object dot transform dot position dot y, and the same thing goes for z. Okay, so that's exactly what we need to make exactly one bouncing enemy to appear on the left and another one on the right. Now we need to go to the bouncing enemy, and we're going to remove this. Okay, this is no longer necessary as the game controller is responsible for spawning the bouncing enemy. And now back in the game controller, there's one last thing that we have to do to ensure that things are going to run correctly. Remember that here we're using the moving left value to tell if we're moving left, and it depends on where we start. So if for some reason the bouncing enemy script runs before the game controller script executes, then we might have a little problem with this. But in this case, we shouldn't have bigger problems, but it is still important to understand something. Start is not the only method that we can use to initialize something. We can also use awake. This awake method is executed before the start method, so whenever this game controller starts to be executed, to be used, then we can already initialize pretty much everything, and everything in this awake method is going to run. And after the awake, we're going to run the start methods of all of the other components that we have here. Okay, so it's going to ensure that we're not going to have bigger problems. Now this time, if we save this and go to Unity, let's wait a little bit, and we're going to press the play button. We're going to have two bounces, okay, one on each side. Okay, so it's a bit more comfortable now. Sometimes we have a difficult angle to work on, but in general we just have one on each side. Okay, so you can have some interesting patterns like this one.